Interstate 80. Yeah. Alright, this is gonna be a big one. Interstate 80 eastbound is what we're talking about today. And this will probably be the longest Control City Freak video, maybe, of all. So let's take a look at the route of I-80. As we see, it is absolutely massive. It crosses the entire country. It goes from San Francisco to the doorstep of New York. It is huge, the second biggest interstate in the country, and perhaps the grandest road as it follows the Lincoln Highway and many other historic routes. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about interstate highways and the places that they're assigned to go to. If you dig this kind of content, why not give us a like? And if you really like it, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Yeah, subscribe. Alright, we're going to be talking about Interstate 80 eastbound. So we begin here in San Francisco. We're on US 101 and we see a Junction 80 sign there to the right, and 80 Bay Bridge is signed for the pull-through, with 101 Golden Gate Bridge exiting itself. Here's a closer look at the intersection. We see the 80 sign is a little bit faded. It is now Bay Bridge, Oakland for 80. Here's a picture I took on a road trip a few years back. We can see the 80 sign looks a lot fresher in these days. And here's the approach from southbound 101. We see southbound 101 for San Jose and 80 Oakland Bay Bridge. Here's a nice look at the San Francisco skyline from I-80. And here we have a sign telling us 4th Street is the last SF exit, and we are still signed for Bay Bridge and Oakland, which makes sense. We go into the Bay Bridge on the San Francisco side. Going eastbound, we go in the lower lanes. We'll have to see the San Francisco view from the top deck on the westbound video. And here's what it looks like traveling east across the Bay Bridge. Here is the new Bay Bridge on the Oakland side. They have this new cable stayed thing here instead of the old bridge that was there. I kind of like the old one better. People said the old one was ugly. This one is kind of meh. It's like every bridge these days. And we have the long approach into Oakland. As soon as we make landfall, we get this useful sign telling us Los Angeles use 580 east and trucks use 880, since trucks are not supposed to go through downtown Oakland. As soon as we get to the Oakland side, we approach the MacArthur Maze, where we see 24 use 580 east for Walnut Creek, West Grand Avenue Oakland Airport use 880 south, and 880 south Alameda San Jose is coming up. So we have 880, 24, 80, and 580 all kind of meeting here at once. Now we get our pull through for 80 Berkeley Sacramento, and 580 West San Rafael are going to be co-signed together for a little while. Here's where you get the exit for 580 East, downtown Oakland, Hayward, Stockton, and we're going to get on 80 for Berkeley, Sacramento. Here is our actual split, where 80 is signed for Berkeley and Sacramento, 580 for San Rafael, and 580 is going to go to Oakland. Stockton is kind of a leftover thing from when 580 used to be US 50. Here's our exit for Berkeley. Now on the Bayshore Freeway, we're beyond Berkeley, so we're now signed Vallejo, Sacramento, and we are splitting with 580 for Point Richmond and San Rafael. Here in the Vallejo area, we meet California Highway 4, so now we're just signed 80 East Sacramento. We cross another bridge in the North Bay here, heading over to mainland California, although we were kind of on mainland before. The Bay Bridge going eastbound was free, but this one is not. $7 just across that. Wow. Here's our exit for 780, and we are in the general central Vallejo area now. We are once again signed for just Sacramento, not two cities on here anymore. Here we're going to be meeting 680, and now we are signed for Sacramento and Fairfield. I don't know about that. I've never heard of Fairfield before. I feel like the better choices would either be Vacaville for meeting 505 or Davis, just because it's a bigger city. If you're going to sign two, it should either be one of those. As is typical of California, there are no control cities on the ramps, just freeway entrance, so this is the only one I'm showing you just to show you that they pretty much all look like this. We meet 505, sign north for Winters and Redding, as it will go north to I-5, kind of the shortcut to the Portland and Seattle areas from here. And here we are in Davis, which I said is a fairly large city in its own right. UC Davis is a pretty big school in the UC system, and we are now on 80 Sacramento, which works. Here we're meeting the start of US 50, where it currently starts, because as I said, 580 kind of took over its old route. I-80 itself took over US 40's old route, so this would have been US 40, US 50 splitting here before. And East 50 is going to go into downtown Sacramento. This is also Business 80, but it's not signed. and East 80 is going to Reno, which is what we're following. North of Sacramento, we meet I-5. I-5 is signed for Redding and Los Angeles. Interesting that we get LA signed here, even though we are north of downtown Sacramento, so it could be South 5 Sacramento still here, but LA works. That's good. And cool to see Reno up on the board here. 80 remains signed for Reno. Now we get into the mountains a bit. The first mountain range of I-80, the Sierra Nevadas, so a pretty tall one. These Google Street View pictures were taken in July, according to Google, and there's still snow on these peaks here, so that's pretty impressive. Here we get to, I believe, I-80's highest point in the Sierras, and that is Donner Pass. Don't get stuck. Here's our exit for Lake Tahoe. So this actually is as far as I've been on 80, because the one time I was in this section, I did come from Lake Tahoe, so I took this road onto 80. Pretty nice scenery here in the Sierra Nevada mountains. We see the Truckee River just alongside of the road there. Welcome to Nevada, where apparently trees are against the law. Good to be back in Nevada though. I haven't been in Nevada on this channel since the I-15 videos, which I checked. The last time I was in Nevada on this channel, I had 3 subscribers and 200 some total views. So thank you guys for sticking with me. First casino opportunity in Nevada, we get a $6.99 breakfast. First time I went to Vegas in the 90s, it was $1.99 for steak and eggs. Here we come to Virginia Street, downtown Reno. And we're gonna get off here just for a second because we're not spending a lot of time in Reno in this channel. Here is downtown Reno. To the left, there's the Harrah's, where I stayed the one time I was ever in Reno, which was awesome. I was down to $4 with nothing in the bank, and I gambled my way back. It was great. We are meeting 580 for Carson City, and 80 is now signed for Elko, which is kind of the one mistake Nevada makes. Although Elko is still pretty far and there's not much else out there, I'd rather see Salt Lake City on this sign here. Here we can see the edge of town in Reno, and it ends on a dime. You are in the middle of nowhere once you're past this little edge of town. Here we see Elko is, 284 miles away. It is still quite far, but that's a long way to sign a city that is not a significant junction and has 20,000 some people. Here's our exit for Alt 50 for Fernley, and this is actually where I left 80 at some point in old road trips as well, the time I went to Reno, because I took the loneliest road, and this is the shortcut to that. So now I've never been on this part of 80 before. As we head toward Elko, this is the Alt 50 interchange with 80, and we see Reno and Elko are our choices. Here's about as big of a junction as we get, 95 north, because we were on US 95 for a while there. And we see Battle Mountain, Carlin, and Elko are on the list. This is kind of a strangely sharp curve that they have on 80 for it being way out in the middle of nowhere. And we finally made it to Elko, so we have this sign for Elko downtown. No pull-through sign for Elko, so I had to get off the interstate to see what our control cities are going to be, and we see they are Reno and Salt Lake City. So at least they're not doing like West Wendover or something like that. We're going Salt Lake City. And I'm pretty sure this here Taco Bell is the only one between Reno and Salt Lake City. So that's something. I get Wells, Wendover, and Salt Lake City. I wonder if they mean Wendover, Utah, or if they're just abbreviating West Wendover, Nevada there. Here is a look at West Wendover. We get our last chance at a casino before we go into Utah. And we get a nice Welcome to Utah sign. Utah is pretty sparse right away. We get next service is 66 miles. Next exit's not for another like 40 after this, so it's quite a ways out here in the Bonneville Salt Flats. I've never driven this before, but I'd like to. It looks awesome. This is the longest, straightest, flattest section of interstate in the entire system. Here we get a sign for Knowles, which I don't think has even a gas station at, and Salt Lake City, 111 miles further. Interesting that we end up behind a different Google Street View car in our Google Street View car here. And here's a look at the southern border of the Salt Lake itself. We're coming into Salt Lake City, and 215 is signed as Belt Route, but unlike on 15, we get control cities this time. We get Ogden and Provo. Kind of weird we get Provo instead of Las Vegas, since 15's always signed for Las Vegas. Now we're meeting I-15, so North Ogden. We're going to be on East 80 Cheyenne, South 15 Las Vegas. Nice faraway control cities there. Pretty cool. Here's the split. So we're going to be on 80 East Cheyenne getting off here as 15 continues its trip to Vegas. And right at the edge of Salt Lake City, we meet 215 again, and it is only signed for belt route this time, as we are on 80 East Cheyenne and about to enter the Wasatch Mountains. Pretty awesome view here, and we see our mileage sign, Kimball Junction, Park City, so that's pretty big, and Cheyenne, 422 miles away. Quite a hike. And at random interchanges in Utah, they stick with this. Cheyenne is on the interchange ramps as well. Now we're meeting US 40. I've taken 80 from Salt Lake City to 40 here before, and now we're getting back to a section of 80 I haven't been to anymore until we get to I-84, and then I've been there again. Wow, look, water. You don't see that much of that in Utah. And we meet I-84, which is signed west for Ogden, and 80 is still signed east for Cheyenne. Solid choices, Utah. Good. Right after meeting 84, we drive right through Echo Canyon, so this is pretty cool here. And we get 3 out-of-state control cities here, Evanston, Rock Springs, and Cheyenne, as we near the Wyoming border. And here we go, the Welcome to Wyoming sign. Not very big. They probably could have made that a bit bigger. And who? Welcome to Wyoming indeed. Evanston 4, Rock Springs 106. Cheyenne magically disappears in its own state. And it interchanges, and this is a fairly major interchange for 80 in Wyoming. We get East 80 Rock Springs. Leaving Evanston, you can see they get some major weather here for sure, as they have the ability to close 80 in all kinds of locations. Here's our next major interchange, and we're signed for 80 East Lyman. Lyman! It changed its spelling. It's after me. It's everywhere. It's the singularity. We can't get away from it. And I've never heard of Lyman, Wyoming. I had no idea there was such a thing. On the mileage signs too. We get rid of Rock Springs and it's exchanged for Lyman. I don't know if they say it the same way, but I don't care. I'm saying it. Lyman. And here at the exit for Lyman, we get 80 East Green River. Not Rock Springs anymore either. Green River. What are they doing? Here in Green River, we do get a nice overhead. East 80 Rock Springs. Finally. We can't even get Rock Springs signed for a while there. And what's Rock Springs? Cheyenne. Put Cheyenne. We're coming close to Rock Springs, so we're now 11 miles away, so we get Rawlins signed on there too. Okay. But in Rock Springs, we get an overhead for 80 East Cheyenne. Okay, weird. I guess Rock Springs is some major waypoint in the mines of Wyoming dots. But at this very interchange that has the overhead for 80 East Cheyenne, on the interchange itself, we get 80 East Rawlins. Why? But sometimes we get Cheyenne on the mileage sign starting from here. So Cheyenne 254. Okay, that's something at least. Here we are in Rawlins, and now we get another pull through for Cheyenne. Let's see if this one sticks. And it seems like it does. At interchanges, we do get signed for Cheyenne. Although at this point, you'd think they'd be going for Laramie, because that's one of the bigger cities of Wyoming as well. And now we do get Sinclair and Laramie. Here in Laramie, we meet with 287. 287 is signed for 3rd Street and Fort Collins. I like that. It looks like the credits on a sitcom that, have a cameo from Tom Cruise or something. Blah, 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 normal cast, and Tom Cruise. All right, now we get Cheyenne 44 and Pine Bluffs 85. Is Pine Bluffs going to be our primary control city after Cheyenne? Here we get to the highest point on I-80 at 8,640 feet. You'd think they'd tell you that other than just this small marker telling us the height. You'd think they'd tell us it's also the highest point. We get to the infamous I-25 intersection in Cheyenne, and we are now 80 East Sydney. Okay, yeah, so we're not going to sign Pine Bluffs. Instead, we're going to sign some tiny town in Nebraska that nobody knows. Sure. Here we meet 180 in Cheyenne. That'll go to downtown Cheyenne. We'll talk more about that one later. Don't you worry. And Sydney is indeed the primary control city. So Pine Bluffs 24, Sydney 83. Here we enter Nebraska. In this channel, we've only gotten a couple miles of Nebraska, but now we're going to get basically all of the interstate miles of Nebraska here in these 80 videos. We get our first mileage sign in Nebraska, and we get Sydney on the bottom line, 58. So signing Sydney in Nebraska is not that much better than signing it in Wyoming. Here in Sydney, North Platte is going to be our next major control city. North Platte's at least a little bit more famous because of the huge railroad yards, so I'm a little bit more on board with that. Wouldn't be so bad if they had that in Cheyenne, but Sydney, no idea why. North Platte on the bottom line at 118 miles away. On the way to North Platte, we meet I-76, which is signed south for Denver, and we get 80 East Omaha. Okay, so we do have our first Omaha mention out here in western Nebraska, but I feel like they're probably not going to stick with it. Jump ahead here to North Platte. So we meet US 83 for North Platte and McCook. And at that US 83 interchange, Kearney is our next place that is signed. Kearney, 98. Just go Lincoln or Omaha at this point, I think. Here we cross the Platte River, which I-80 has been right next to for pretty much all of western Nebraska. It's also the old Pony Express route through here too, so a lot of history through here. That's pretty interesting. Don't see one of those every day. And here in Kearney, our next control city is going to be Grand Island, according to the interchange. I don't know about this. Grand Island's not that far away, 40 miles, and Grand Island is a ways off the road. I would definitely just go Lincoln here. Here's our interchange for Grand Island and Hastings. And we can see at this interchange, Grand Island, yeah, is still a cool 9 miles away. It's not really on 80. It's quite a ways. So I wouldn't sign Grand Island on 80 at all, I don't think. Well, at least not as a primary. Lincoln 88. That works for me. That's good. Lincoln is now our bottom line city. I know Omaha is bigger, but Lincoln is the capital, University of Nebraska, and there's like 200,000 people in Lincoln. It's huge by Nebraska standards. Here in Lincoln, we get a major junction with US 77. It's kind of a Y split for a northeast-southeast split here. And 80 has no control city, just 80 east. Kind of weird. We meet I-180, which will take us into downtown Lincoln, and 80 still is just 80 East. On 180 itself, though, 80 is signed for Omaha. I don't know why we don't have Omaha on that overhead there, because obviously Omaha is what should be signed there. Omaha is our bottom line road now at 46 miles, and as we come into Omaha, we see 80 signed east downtown as we meet 680. 680 is just signed north. No control city for 680 at all. Probably should put something there. And now we're meeting 480, which is signed for Epley Airfield and for downtown. And 80 is now going to be signed for Des Moines, since 480 is the way to downtown Omaha. We're crossing the Missouri River, and we're going to be on 80 East Express Des Moines, or you can take 29 South 80 East Local for Council Bluffs and local exits. We've seen this on the 29 video before. It's pretty interesting here. The people of Iowa welcome you, and we're about to meet I-29. And here is where I-29 splits north for Sioux City, and we see the through lanes are East 80 Express for Des Moines, and the exit is for 80 East Council Bluffs, along with 29. Here's where 80 and 29 are going to be splitting. We see on the express lanes that 80 is the through road, and you have to exit to get onto 29 Kansas City. And on the local lanes, 29 is the through road, and you have to exit to get onto 80 Des Moines. We go northeast a bit, and we're about to turn due east for Des Moines, and we have this exit for the brand new 880, which used to be called 680, for North Omaha and Sioux City. Nothing too surprising here, Des Moines 96. And we approach one of the two major Des Moines junctions where 35 and 235 and 80 all meet. So we have 235 East Des Moines, 80 East North 35 Chicago, Minneapolis. I had no idea that was there. A commenter mentioned that, and I thought they were mistaken because I've never actually taken 80 into this junction. I've been in this junction every other movement, but I've never been on this part of 80 going into Des Moines. So I thought it was just going to be Davenport, but from this direction we get Chicago. Here is a look at downtown Des Moines. We don't really get anywhere near it on 80, but I was there recently, so may as well share this picture. And we're back on 3580 East, Minneapolis, Chicago. So we get that Chicago signage here as well. I don't usually take this 3580. I usually take 235 through Des Moines. So again, I've not seen this before. Here's our split, and 80 reverts to Davenport, which is what it is on all the signs I had seen before. 35 North Minneapolis, 235 West Des Moines. So Davenport becomes our primary control city instead of Chicago. I think I'm okay with that. The Quad Cities are fairly big. You've got 3 two-digit interstates there, plus a 3-digit, couple 100,000 people, Mississippi River. It's all right. Here's a picture I took. This is the exit for Amana Colonies, which is where I always would stop for gas when driving from Kansas to Chicago. It's just basically how far a tank of gas got me from Kansas. We meet 380 for Cedar Rapids. Davenport remains the bottom line city here. And we pass by Iowa 80, the world's largest truck stop. I recommend the hot dogs. This is a little weird. We're meeting 280, so 280 is signed for Rock Island and Moline, 80 is signed for Chicago, so the Davenport signage just disappears. I feel like 80 should probably be Chicago Davenport because that's going to be the better way to Davenport by taking Brady Street. But 280 you can get around to Davenport too, I suppose. Here's a look at the I-74 and I-80 junction. I took this way back in 1995 on one of my first big road trips. You can see my buddy's fake turtle at the bottom there. Here on this gantry now we get a little bit more information. They tell us 274 Peoria, we should stay on 80 East and not get off 74 here for local traffic. We cross the Mississippi River, we get a nice Illinois rest area sign. Feel like they could put a welcome to Illinois sign there instead, but here is our Illinois rest area and we get our first sign for 88. We'll look at that a little further down the road. Welcome to Illinois, 2 or 3 miles in, just like they do in East St. Louis. This is just terrible signage here. 80 East with no control city, 88 East for Sterling and Rock Falls. So 80 and 88 are both going to Chicagoland. They should do this the same way they do the Kansas Turnpike 35 split in Emporia. Should be 80 East, Joliet, Chicago, 88 East, Aurora, Chicago. No Sterling, no Rock Falls, come on. And here the main line of I-80 gets onto a single lane cloverleaf loop, and not for the last time. Here we are going on 80 across Illinois, and we get Chicago 160, Joliet 128. At interchanges though, IDOT's gonna IDOT, we get East Joliet at like all of them. It is insane. Should be Chicago, come on. Here we meet 180 South Hennepin, and we will talk about that one later too. Trust me. Here we meet I-39, 80 East Chicago, and 39 north for Rockford. Also makes for a Chicago bypass to get over to Madison. 39 south for Bloomington Normal. Here we go with Joliet once again as the secondary control city, which is a fine spot for it, but it shouldn't be at the interchanges. We meet I-55. I-55 is signed north for Chicago, so we are now on 80 East Indiana. In the old days, it used to be 80 East Toledo here, but they switched it to Indiana to match all the other state route signage that they have in Chicagoland. And here we cross the Des Plaines River Bridge, which is probably going to crumble into the river any day now. Considered one of the worst bridges in the country. We still get an 80 East Indiana here, but yeah, just look at that bridge. We meet 355 North Rockford, which I think is not a good choice. If you're going to Rockford, you would have had any number of choices to get off before here. I would just change it back to suburbs or west suburbs the way it used to be. Is actually a little better than Rockford. Or, you know, Aurora or Schaumburg, something like that. Nobody's taken 80 this far in and then taken 355 to 290 to 90 to Rockford. Indiana is our secondary now at 22 miles away. Toledo, primary at 246, although everything's still signed 80 East Indiana. We meet I-57, which has its fresh new interchange with 294 North, so they mentioned that here. Here we get our pull through for East 80 Indiana. Now we're meeting 294 itself, so 294 North Toll Wisconsin and East South Toll Indiana ahead. Get our choices of paying online or paying online. I guess the cash option is gone. Here's a look at the last cash option they had though. $1.10. It's 40 cents when I used to drive on this road. And here 80 joins 294. Always a weird thing that 80 is not the primary road here, that 80 is the sub road that is joining the through line of 294. We're about to meet I-94 and we get these lovely 80-94 East Indiana ahead signs. I always loved those when I was a kid. My cousins were big fans too, that 80-94 Indiana ahead. And Indiana has built quite a nice arch as we cross into the Borman Expressway. On the Borman, it is signed westbound for Chicago, no surprise, and eastbound 8094 for Detroit, which I think is okay because you stay on the same carriageway to get to 94 to Detroit. Also, Detroit's just a bigger city than Toledo is. Here we're going through Gary. We get our Klein Avenue exit. Here's what the mileage signs look like on the Borman. And now we're meeting I-65 shortly, South Indianapolis, quite a bit sooner than north to Toll Road. And this exit, Broadway, will take you to downtown Gary if you hang a left onto that. And now we get our 80 East 90 Toll Road, always with this weird vertical alignment for 80 and 90 here. Here's our exit for 80 East and 90 to Toll Road. And as we can see, once again, main line I-80 is going to be a one-lane cloverleaf. Join the Indiana Toll Road, already in progress, and 90 is signed for Chicago, 80/90 east for Ohio, which is generally what they do on the Indiana Toll Road. Here is our toll booth, and this is a pretty good mileage sign. Michigan City, fairly substantial place, 17. South Bend, almost could be a primary, but I'm okay that it's not, 48. And Toledo, 184. This is kind of weird though. US 31 is a freeway in South Bend, so this is a pretty major intersection, but we get no pull-throughs and not even an overhead sign, just a side of the road sign telling us 31. Even interstate junctions, when we meet I-69, no overhead, no pull-through. Weird. Also, I don't know why Angola is on there, along with Fort Wayne and Lansing. I feel like those two do the job. On the 69 interchange onto the toll road, we get west 80/90 Chicago, east 80/90 Ohio, so we're getting the same control cities we did when 80 joined. Although on 69 itself, it is signed for Chicago Toledo instead of Chicago, Ohio. And we get to Ohio. Welcome to Ohio. East 80/90 Ohio Turnpike 1 mile. We're already on the Ohio Turnpike, but they mean the toll booth, obviously. And here is our toll booth for joining the Ohio Turnpike. And we get a nice 80/90 East Toledo. Great to see that. They used to just have through traffic on all these signs, so I'm glad they added real control cities. Toledo is on the bottom line at 55 miles away. And we meet I-75 for Toledo and Dayton. So we're now on 80/90 Cleveland. Cleveland 100 miles away. Now 90 exits for Cleveland, and we get the through traffic. So we get one of these old signs they haven't replaced yet that is still there as of 2022 Street View. We meet 480, which is also signed for Cleveland. And now we meet I-71, also signed for Cleveland, and 80 East Youngstown now. So no more through traffic. We do get Youngstown. 77, also for Cleveland, and 80 East Youngstown. 480, again, and also for Cleveland, and 80 East Youngstown. Youngstown 42 miles away here. And now we are meeting I-76. So we see East 80 is going to be going to Youngstown. 76 stays on the Ohio Turnpike, as we saw in the I-76 video. And after exiting the Turnpike, we are now 80 East Youngstown, left lane, 76 West Akron, the other way. We meet 680, which goes into Youngstown, and we get the awesome 80 East New York City, as well it should be. Good job, Ohio. And they stick with it. We have the exit for Warren and still 80 East New York City. It's even on the mileage sign, I-79 26 and New York City 396. Notice how it doesn't mention any Pennsylvania cities because we don't pass through any cities in Pennsylvania, at least anything that could really be considered a city by any definition. Welcome to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania starts out pretty badly. We get 376 not signed for Pittsburgh but for Newcastle, and 80 East not signed for anything at all. And from here it's just going to get worse. In fact, let's look on 376 itself. It is signed for Newcastle on the pull-through, and 80 signed for Mercer. So there's a lot of bad control cities coming. I'm just going to cut it to a montage, and I think I can only play 9 seconds of this song, so it's going to be fast.
There's no easy way out.
No overhead sign for 99.
There's no shortcut home.
This Delaware Water Gap thing's may be the worst of all because there is one exit in Pennsylvania left at this point in Stroudsburg, and we're signing the control city for the one remaining exit. So here's our one exit for the Delaware Water Gap, and now we're on 80 East New Jersey. They can't sign New York still, they gotta go with New Jersey, and we're just about to cross into New Jersey. PA! And here we cross into New Jersey on the Delaware River. As is the custom of New Jersey, we get no Welcome to New Jersey sign, but we do get surprisingly beautiful scenery. You never think of this with New Jersey, but this is fantastic, this Delaware Water Gap. It's really beautiful on I-80 here. Look at this old bridge. This is great. This looks like a great road. I really want to drive this part of I-80 at some point. I've never been on it beyond the Youngstown split. And here in New Jersey, we do get 80 East New York City signed at interchanges, so that's cool. And on the pull-through, we get 80 East Netcong, New York City. I don't know what Netcong is, but it's cool that it's there as long as we have New York City there too. At 287, we get Patterson in New York City. All right, and now we're doing George Washington Bridge, New York here to differentiate from this East 46 that'll take us to the Lincoln Tunnel. Here in Patterson, we get just 80 East, no pull-through city. But before long, we get East New York City once again, so that's awesome. And now we are meeting I-95. We get an end 80, begin 95 north. George Washington Bridge, New York City. Would like to see 80 cosigned maybe to the bridge just for kicks, but that's just the romantic in me, I guess. So here is the end of I-80. We get 95 north, George Washington Bridge, New York, and South 95 signed for nothing. All right, let's take a look at Todd's The Way It Should Be. In 80 East, it's quite a bit to talk about here. Todd's The Way It Should Be, I agree, it should be Bay Bridge, Oakland, that's great. Berkeley, Sacramento, great. San Rafael, Sacramento is what I would go with from there. And then Vallejo, Sacramento is fine. From there I'd go Vacaville, Sacramento, or Davis, Sacramento, either one's okay. Then just Sacramento. Reno, I would skip past Elko in Reno and just go Salt Lake City. From Salt Lake City, I'd sign Cheyenne like they do, and then I'd keep it that way throughout Wyoming. I would do the Ohio thing, though, I think, and maybe in Rock Springs or so, sign Laramie, and then in Laramie, go back to Cheyenne, like they did in 77 for Akron and Cleveland. I think that's the way to go there. Going into Nebraska, I would sign it as Nebraska, or sign it Omaha, and then do the Ohio thing, sign Lincoln from Kearney or so, and then Omaha again. If we were just to sign Nebraska, I would sign North Platte starting from the border, then I would go straight to Lincoln, and from Lincoln I would go to Omaha, and Omaha, Des Moines as they do. I'm fine with Davenport, doesn't have to be Chicago. Davenport's fine from Des Moines, Chicago from there, and the way they do it in Illinois with Indiana there, that's fine. I'd go with Indiana, sign it Toledo from the split instead of just Ohio, sign the Indiana Turnpike as Toledo, then sign Cleveland as they do, and Youngstown, and then I would sign it New York City the whole rest of the way. There is nothing significant in Pennsylvania to sign anywhere near I-80. Alright, thank you so much for watching this very long episode of Control City Freak. I think I might take a break from 80 mainline next week and come back with some special other 80 related content, but it's going to be awesome, I promise you this. Until then though, my name is Todd, and keep on truckin'.